So this is Mark Hansen. I worked with him in the past at Plaid Video Marketing at the time. Now it's Plaid Social Labs. And he was one of our salespeople there. And he was really aggressive in sales, great on the phones, able to stay motivated and keep working, whereas a lot of people would pitter out and not be able to make it on the phones. So tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of where you came from and what got you here.
Sure. I'm from Cedar Hills, Utah. I grew up there, played baseball.
Yeah, so I was scrolling through your Facebook page, did a little bit of Facebook stuff
Yeah,
on you,
you see my,
and I saw your old geezers.
Oh man, it was great. We won.
Yeah.
It was like a team from the 2001-2010 that just beat the current seniors team. That's the first time I've thrown off a mound in probably 11 years.
That's awesome.
My arm went numb probably after fifth pitch, and then I was able to keep throwing. But it was great. It was a ton of fun. Yeah.
Sweet.
So those are the guys I grew up with playing baseball. But yeah, that's really where I'm from. Utah kid.
Okay. What got you interested in sales and business?
That's a good question. So my first job, which most people's first job tends to be something around, physical labor or something like that. I don't have the stature of a 9 foot tall, beast of a man as you do. So I started with furniture delivery. My brother-in-law had a furniture delivery company, and I was just doing that before my mission during high school. Did a little after my mission as well. And after my mission is really when I started thinking, I don't want to be lifting stuff for the rest of my life. I don't really feel I'm using what I'm good at here. I find myself having a little bit of a strength developing relationships.
Uh-huh.
And I'd go and do deliveries. I'd make friends with the people I'm delivering furniture to, chat with them. Sure. They'd open up. I'd be talking to them about stuff, that usually you don't talk to the first time you meet someone. And I liked it. I was passionate about it, more so than finding out how to fit this giant armoire into their basement or something like that. So I also was kind of attracted to the idea of, instead of watching the clock all day and knowing that I have to work this many hours and how much more until the day's over, and no matter how hard I work, I'm going to make the same amount of money, I started thinking, maybe I can be doing better on a different skill set of with my mouth or rather than my back and my arms, and the harder I work, the more money I make. So I was appealed to kind of start into the sales path a little bit.
Great. Where did you start?
Phone sales. There's a place in Provo called Prosper. I started there, and I had no idea what I was doing, to be honest with you. I had no sales experience. I had to sell my sales experience that I kind of didn't exist beforehand.
Yeah.
And I came and showed up in the interview, and he let me, he offered me the job, and I was selling some upsell products for a guy named Chet Holmes International, where he does kind of like business coaching guru stuff. And they fed you leads, and it was kind of this thing where they buy a book, and so they're semi-interested, then you reach out to them. And I did really well. I actually still have a great relationship with the boss that was there before, and we tried to connect. He offered me jobs after that and things, but I just found a passion for like the unknown, unexpected, big catch, kind of like, that could be waiting behind every call.
Instead of having that, I make $10 an hour or whatever,
exactly.
you got an opportunity to make however much you're willing to put forward.
Exactly, and you never know what's going to be there. For example, you're a fishing guy, right? I think you talked about how you make sushi right out of the boat and eat it or something
Sure.
like that. You don't but yeah, just like fishing, where you put your pole in the water, you don't know what's going to be there. What motivates you to keep fishing? It's the idea that there might be something huge out there.
Yeah, good.
You don't know every time you reel in.
I agree. So, in all of your sales experience, what do you feel like was one of the top tools in your toolbox?
I feel that probably the one that I would be the most proud of, that I kind of niched myself into, was the idea of first impressions, and really creating a relationship out of nothing, where I was motivated by other people I worked with to use certain tactics or ways to. But that really is the final frontier, right? I think that all this money that's spent on marketing and things is to avoid having to do that, because that's the hardest thing to do.
Absolutely. So in all of the sales organizations that I've worked in, and I've had teams under me and worked with them, the hardest thing to get everybody motivated on is actually hitting the phones and starting to do cold calling, because it's a grind. You have to get in there, it's down and dirty, you get a lot of rejection, but you find nuggets of success throughout that.
And of course, with the hardest job, which people think that there's no way that's going to happen, is where you find the most reward too, and it's the most fulfilling too. If you do something, it's like, wow, yeah, I did that, and then people are like, wait, you just called that. So for example, Plaid, you remember with IHC, I think that was kind of where a good example of starting off with literally calling some lady at a front desk somewhere at IHC, developing at least enough of an understanding of who I need to talk to, bring something to value enough where I talk to the right person, interest them enough to say, all right, yeah, we'll give you a few minutes, come on in.
Yeah.
I think that was kind of a big thing for me, but I guess that would be kind of my proudest achievement, is just the ability to start something when nothing is there, and at least have the tools to make that happen. Being kind of the fastest route to business is just literally picking up the phone and getting someone on the line that you can make action with, which
I think it literally is the fastest way to see success, as long as you're willing to do it, because where else can you go and literally see hundreds of people? You can go to these conferences or whatever, but are you really able to network as much and get those 100 people? I've been to lots of conferences, and maybe I meet 10, 15 people, but in one day I can do 100 calls.
Yeah.
So, you're talking to people and getting the information out there at least. So, how do you get past gatekeepers? What do you find to be kind of the most successful thing there?
With that, and I think that's kind of one of the most awkward sides of it, right? Is that I found out that I would have a little bit of hesitation having to get past that first thing, but knowing, especially with Plaid, there's a heck of a lot of them. You have to. There's no question. You have to get through a gatekeeper. Never are you just going to have a number straight direct to the person that's going to make the decisions. So I almost found that was the game of it from the beginning, is knowing something. So what I would usually do, and what I found myself doing for a long time after Plaid, is getting something that's going to help me bypass the view of the gatekeeper that I'm just the average Joe, run-of-the-mill guy that calls them all day long. Something that gets me past the point of, hey, this guy actually knows something. So I would actually do a little bit of research. A lot of times it would take a few minutes. I'd learn a little bit about the company, most importantly the person I want to talk to, and hey, if I found out he's at a golf tournament, or he just got back from a golf tournament, or I find on his Facebook or through LinkedIn or something, then right when I talk to the gatekeeper, hey, is Troy back from the golf tournament yet?
Good.
And honestly, that something as small as that instantly changes the perspective of, this is an average Joe, to, okay, he's in here, he knows this guy, I'm just going to pass him through. I never had to have someone question my relationship with them if I'm able to prove that offhand with something that is a little bit more substantial to prove it.
So one of the things that I've noticed when working in sales and trying to find those leads like you're talking about, I find myself doing a little bit of research, but then I get kind of dug in a little bit too long maybe. How do you allot yourself a certain amount of time, or do you just kind of make it, like, how do you decide how much time to spend looking for a lead versus just hitting the phone?
That's a great question, because you can just get caught up too much and you start overthinking it, and then you never actually press the buttons to give them a call.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like if I start putting towards some effort and I'm just not getting as much as I want to get, then at the end of the day, you just gotta make the call and use what you can. And
so do you set a goal for yourself? Like, do you say, what, today I want to knock out 50 calls, or do you say, how do you decide to kind of keep yourself moving through?
For me, it hasn't necessarily been, because you'll have people that do say, okay, you got to get through your 50 dials a day, or you got to get through your 200 dials a day. For me, I found that if that's the goal, if that's the carrot that you're putting in front of yourself, you will literally, all of your effort, attention, mindset, words are just going to get the dial. That's the end result, regardless of what happens during the call. So I mean, it's pretty obvious, but anybody I would imagine would want to put their goals towards the result. I want to set 5 appointments today.
Okay.
And so with that, if I have more information or more of a chance with one call over another, I'm going to give more of an effort towards that chance, just because I want the end result to happen rather than just making a call, wasting a lead, and moving on.
Yeah.
So there were some days where honestly I made maybe 10 dials, but I got 3 appointments out of it. You know.
Sure.
So that was probably the best way for me to just stay as close as I can to the money and to the appointment.
So do you find it more drive to set goals, to set like a sales quota, or what motivates you more? What keeps you going? You know, is it to make $1 million by the end of the year, or you know, what kind of things motivate you to keep pushing and keep driving through?
You know, it's funny. I think that there's a lot of different ways to do that, and I've met people that have very complex Excel spreadsheets or what have you with these big huge goals at the end of the year, and they'll sit down with their manager and have these big huge goals, and there's nothing wrong with that. In every sales organization I've been with, there's that to a certain extent, to say, okay, projecting this out, this is where you can be by the end of the year. The thing that I think is that as refined as you can make that list into something just simple, achievable, and easy to keep track of, the more likely it is to happen. So I would take that number all the way down, that pie in the sky, all the way down to something that I can do within the next hour. I can do within the next 3 hours or something. So it usually comes down to, okay, I need to make this many appointments today, you know, and rather than thinking, you know, of course I want to be making a certain amount of money. So it comes a time when you look at that, you take that into perspective and say, okay, well, this is what I really want, and then you chop it all the way down, of course, into littler pieces to say, what do I need to do today to get this by the end of the year? But if I spend too much time Excel spreadsheeting,
right,
all of these things, then I lose track of, okay, where's my production today? You know?
So I do think it's important to have goals. I think you need to have goals set out there for you, and I think it's really important to have deadlines too. So if you do set goals, I think you need to have a deadline for them and say, you know what, I'm going to hit this goal. I'm going to have 3 appointments by the end of the day. So at 5 o'clock today, I'm going to have 3 appointments. So you're setting a deadline for yourself. So, you know, when you get down to the wire, I think we're wired, so we get a little nervous when we get to the end of the deadline, and we try to push harder, and we try to get moving through it. So for myself, I love to set deadlines on my goals. So, you know, I'll say, you know, by the end of this week, I want to have 200 billings or whatever, 20 billings or whatever it is. Just that makes me push a little harder in the last hour or whatever. So that's kind of how I
especially if you're motivated well enough to be able to hold yourself to them, rather than
Yeah.
just having it something that's there but you never really stick to it. And that really is.
Yeah, and I think it's important that you set your own goals versus like your company saying a quota for you. I think you need to have your goal. Maybe, you know, usually they set the quota pretty high. They like to do that, but if you set your goal a little bit higher, and then you break it down like you're saying, to where it's just to a fraction, where you say, you know, in the next hour I need an appointment or whatever, I think then you're able to take it on a little easier.
Sure.
So what has cold calling done for you kind of in your life?
For me, to be honest with you, and I you know, who knows where I'll end up, you know, in the next, like we were just talking about before, 5, 10 years, who knows? But any aspect of business and sales, I think I would have to look back and find that crucial time in my life that I somehow developed a passion for conversations over the phone and cold calling, and say that really was a refiner's fire to me. Like we touched on before, I really think that is, it's the straightest path. It's the quickest quickest path to an end result, and really it's the guerrilla warfare of business.
Absolutely.
Where
there's few guys out there that'll actually do it and do it good.
Yeah.
I mean, there's people that get on the phone and they'll get all down or whatever.
Or people that spend so much time worrying about it and over preparing.
Yeah.
And when it actually happens, either they over prepared in the wrong direction, they're not flexible enough to make things.
Yeah, because you get curveballs thrown at you, right? On cold calls.
Yeah.
Who knows what they're going to say? They could be totally nuts and just go crazy.
And even if they're talking about it, the hairs on the back of your neck kind of stand up, because
there's a little bit of adrenaline to it.
There
right?
is, yeah.
I get excited, so
yeah.
like I dread it a little bit when I get ready to do it.
Yeah.
But when I actually get on the phones and start doing it, I get excited. I start walking around my office.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a little baseball bat in there. I walk around with that baseball bat, and I'm like, and I get pumped. I get excited. So as long as I can keep those dials going, I get excited, and I keep that excitement going through.
Yeah.
But if I stop, then I'm like, again, and then I've got to pick it back up.
Yeah, you absolutely do have to keep yourself pumped up, because I mean, it's kind of the rock star view of sales. Really, is that specifically cold calling? Because if you can do that well enough and have confidence in yourself in doing it, I mean, that's so valuable to be able to
well,
have
honestly, in your sales professional life, how many people are on par with that cold calling? I mean, that can actually do it and want to do it and are willing to do it.
It's a certain kind of personality, huh? You can almost see, I guess, that kind of person just having a conversation with them if they have that kind of.
And there's so few of them to me. I mean, in all the organizations that I've worked in, you're probably the best one that I've worked with. And I mean, it's just a rare thing to find somebody that's able to do it and do it well.
Yeah, no, it's a rare breed for sure.
So that kind of wraps up the cold calling. Unless you have anything else to add?
No, well, you did mention that as far as a overall tip or
just a piece of advice, for kind of everybody.
Yeah, and honestly, that's probably every sales organization either that I've helped develop the presentation or even been a part of. I think the one mentality, little bit of information that I can even be useful on, I feel like that can be passed along is probably the biggest advice I would give is that you can't be a salesman to be a salesman, which is kind of a weird thing to say. But I learned it early on because I found there's two types of salesmen out there, and one is the generic, used car salesman. Nobody likes to be sold things, right? Yeah. Nobody likes to feel like they're being sold something. So as soon as I found out that there's an attitude that you can portray over the phone that people will not assume that you're, the typical salesman guy. If you can avoid hot words or buttons that make you sound like the classic one is when you call someone, hey, this is so and so from so and so, how are you? I mean, no one the how are you? No one really cares to answer that honestly. Like that just gives you away as like, oh, okay.
Well, and I feel that also gives. What if they're having a bad day?
Exactly.
It's terrible, and then it just starts your call off.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Well, who are you? Why do you care? Kind of thing. Or do you have a few seconds? No one really is willing to give time. I think that's another thing too, is that you just got to go into it because people.
Well, you're
so
interrupting them, right?
Too.
So you're calling them. You're interrupting whatever they're doing. They have to stop it and focus on you.
So specifically asking for permission to do that, it has a harder thing because then it's like, well, so you're bringing up the fact that you're going to take my time, kind of a thing. And I think there's little things that I've either learned from other people or have found just from banging my head against the wall that tips you off right away that you're talking to someone that's going to take your time, try to sell you something, rather than literally has something that, and this is mindset as well, is that you have something that you've prepared or that you have that is valuable to them in that conversation.
Yeah.
It kind of puts you, even just your actions, your mannerisms, put you at this level where you're providing value. So they should be happy to be talking to you, but it has to be something real. Otherwise, they'll call you out on it.
I agree with you 100% on that. So my opinion is when you get ready to call, to have your pitch boiled down to 20 seconds to where you can pique their interest and give them that value that you think they might need. So, you've researched the company enough to know that they need your product.
Something specific. Yeah.
So, to have it boiled down to 20 seconds where you can pitch them on it and then have them excited about it.